Hi, welcome to this chapter that will cover getting to know your audience. It's so very important to know to whom you're speaking to and to know who your audience is. In the next slide, you will see the overview of what we will cover in this particular chapter. For your audience. We will be looking at what do you need to know about your audience, what do you need to investigate, what do you need to know about the speaking situation, why are you speaking, is it a celebration speech or is it an informative speech, how do you locate your audience in situation information, where do you find this information, and how can you adapt to your audience during the speech. What do you need to know about your audience? Well, you have to think about, especially in your persuasive speech, their attitudes, their beliefs, and their values. Attitudes, we're looking at whether simply a person likes it or does not like it. You have a good attitude about school, you like school, or you don't like school. Beliefs is whether you find it true or false. I believe in God. I don't believe in God. A belief system. I believe that a good education will get me a good job. I don't believe education is the key to financial freedom. And values, that's something that's instilled in folks, something that you learn from a very young age. You value honesty or you value integrity. So when we're thinking about persuasive speeches, when we're thinking about our topic, we want to think about generally the demographics of our audience. The majority of the folks out there, perhaps their attitudes, their beliefs, and their value system. What specific traits do you need to investigate? Okay, so what do we need to think about? How do we gain these demographics? How do we put our audience in a sense of groupings? We chunk our audience in, we say usually between the ages of 18 and 24. The folks in that age group like this type of music, have this type of spending characteristics. So that's what we're looking at. Think about who's out there in your audience. What are the demographics? What's their age group? Think about that when you're online and you're taking a survey. They usually want to find out who is on this site. So they'll ask you your age, and they group it between 18 and 24, 25 and 36, 36 and 50, because in each of those categories, there's different types of characteristics, demographics that fall in there. Who's out there as far as gender? Mostly male, mostly female. So you think about that when you're preparing your speech. You think about, I'm thinking about two topics perhaps. One would be something that perhaps generally most females would prefer to hear about, or maybe generally most males would prefer to hear about, or maybe not. Or something that's geared toward each gender. Sexual orientation, mostly heterosexual, homosexual, or a mixture. Education, occupation. So some of these might fall into your the importance for your speech, maybe not, but it is very important to think about, in particular, the age group, gender, education, depending on your topic. It could be sexual orientation, it could be occupation, income. Are you speaking to a group of people about retirement, about saving for retirement, and their income level is very low? They wouldn't be interested in saving for retirement, persuading them to save for retirement. They don't have any money to make ends meet. So that kind of example. Generational trends, you could read through this. Folks, again, we're looking at age, and as far as traditionalists, baby boomers, Generation X, and Generation Y. And you could see some of the characteristics that fall into each of these generations. Now, obviously not everybody, it's not black and white, clear cut. However, it is a good rule of thumb, okay? A good persuasive speech, or a good informative speech, perhaps. What else do we want to think about? Okay, so we're looking at personality traits, personal traits, as I call demographics, age, gender, education. We also want to think about psychological traits. And again, in your persuasive speech, this is going to be really important. Perhaps you're familiar from psychology class, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what Maslow is saying here is that we have a pyramid of needs. We have a 5-sectional pyramid of needs. And we must meet the first layer before we can move to the second layer. So the first basic need we have is food, water, and air, obviously. The second is safety needs, and that's clothing and shelter. The third is social needs. We need to feel belonged or belonging with others, but remember, we need to meet the psychological and the safety needs first. Fourth is self-esteem needs, and that's respect from others and ourselves. And lastly is self-actualization needs, and that's your personal identity. Who am I? Your independence, your happiness, your potential. So, why do we care about this in giving a speech? If we're looking at a persuasive speech, psychological traits, and you're speaking to a group of people, and let's say they have not gained self-actualization needs. In other words, they're still working on their social needs. Let's go back to this, belonging with others. They haven't advanced yet to self-esteem needs. They don't have that need yet because they have just basically fell into social needs. Now that could be an age thing. A teenager, someone a younger age may only follow these 3 tiers before they can get into having a good, strong self-esteem and respect from others. And then lastly, self-actualization. So when you're thinking about your persuasive speech, think about whether or not your audience have met all of these tiers. And if you are falling into, let's say, a persuasive speech or the pursuit of happiness, that you feel that the majority of your audience have gained self-actualization needs. Social traits by choice or by birth you could look at. Lastly, what do you need to know about the speaking situation? Okay, you know what, if I was speaking at a commencement, a celebration, that would be a lot different than a eulogy, right? A eulogy, we're paying tribute to a person. A commencement is celebration. So you need to know what this speaking engagement is about and what the purpose is. You need to know the place and the audience size, the time and the occasion. As I said earlier, eulogy or commencement. Place and audience size. Is it a large audience, like a commencement? Will you need a microphone? What's the place? Are you outside? Are you inside? What's the venue? So, usually a good rule of thumb is the larger the audience, the more formal the speaking engagement or the speaking situation will be, because you are stationed at a podium with a microphone, and you need to keep it on a formal basis. But that's not, again, always true. You might be speaking to a board of directors where you have a group of 10 people. Not very large, but it would be very formal. But it's important to know the place and the audience size. You may not be able to bring in visual aids if it's a large audience. The time of day, after lunch, after a big lunch, we tend to want to take a nap, right? So are you speaking to a group of people about 1 o'clock? Or is it over a luncheon period? Or is it first thing in the morning when we're all fired up with our coffee and our energy drinks and everybody's geared to listen to you? So if it's in the afternoon, you're going to need to find a really good attention getter to gain the audience's attention in the beginning. If not, if you immediately have their attention, then you don't have to be so concerned with time. How do you locate audience and situation information? Well, in class, you know that we've had our self-introductions, or we will be having introductions. You can do your audience analysis then. But if, let's say, you were asked to speak at the local Rotary Club, and you say, yes, I love to speak in public, and I'm going to go there with bells on and speak to the Rotary. But then you get off the phone with the person, or you finish texting with him or her, and you find out, you think, geez, what's a Rotary? So, one great way is just to call the person back or contact the person who asked you to speak. Think about what you already know about the Rotary. Obviously, we can Google it. You can brainstorm with others and speak to other people. Also, there's research as far as what where you can find information. So as we know, you can go to credible websites, brochures, news articles, almanacs, government archives. I've given you a library guide for this class when you need to do research for your persuasive speech, and if you choose to do research for your informative, that you could use that gives you a good guideline of what is credible research. Interviewing guidelines, if you wanted to interview, let's say, the vice president of the Gettysburg campus because you're doing a speech on something that's specific to the Gettysburg campus, you're delivering a speech, we know the difference between open-ended questions where they will give you a response in paragraph form, compared to closed-ended questions, which are very easy to tally. They are true or false questions where you can just kind of tally up the true or false to come to your conclusions. You can put together a survey. I've had many students in the past survey the class, survey the audience, which, hey, you know what great audience analysis. You put together a survey before your speech, you find out the characteristics, and then you in a sense, decide on your topic and the language and the use of examples in your speech based on this survey of your classmates. How can you adapt to your audience during your speech? Well, remember the transactional communication model. Perhaps we didn't go over that yet, but we will be going over that. But there's external noise and internal noise. Maybe you hear some external noise as you're listening to this video. I know there was just fire trucks going by my street here, but usually it's environmental barriers such as a police car or someone walking by the classroom. We all know all eyes are on the person, so it doesn't necessarily have to be noise from the ear. It could be a visual noise. Linguistic barriers, so a person may have a speech impediment and you have difficulty in understanding. Internal noise, what's going on up there? What's the voices in our head? Psychological barriers and physiological barriers. Remember, psychological barriers are mental. I don't know about you, but I daydream, right? You could be sitting in class, about after 20 minutes, you start thinking about, what should I have for lunch? And you stop listening. Not saying that's a good thing, but sometimes we do that. So that's a psychological barrier. Internal noises. Physiological barriers. Maybe we just don't have a good a chemical balance within our brain. We have difficulty in listening. So that's an internal noise, which is a physiological barrier that prevents us from listening completely. Okay, that was from chapter 1, and it was entitled Getting to Know Your Audience and Situation. Real important to think about, to whom are you speaking to? So to review, we looked at personal traits, which is also considered demographics. We looked at setting an occasion. Also, where do you find good information for your speech as far as research, surveys, interviews. And the first thing we covered, remember, was attitudes, beliefs, and values. Okay, see you later.